Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Pi, starring Gillette, Mark Margolis, Ben Shankman, Pamela Hart, Steve Perlman, Samia Shoaib, forgive me if I said that wrong, Lauren Fox, AJ Naidoo, Tom Timonello, and Esfer Leal Neves, directed by Darren Aronofsky. Now before I get into this, welcome to Darren Aronofsky. And although I did review one of his films before, Black Swan, which I wasn't that big on if you saw my review of that, but why am I doing a Darren Aronofsky retrospective? Well, he's got a movie coming out called Caught Stealing, and I hear he's one of those masterful directors. We'll see how that goes, because I've seen his later stuff, like starting with the Black Swan or the Wrestler. I think the Wrestler. Yeah, that sounds familiar. As that came out first, and let's see how his directorial stuff goes. Let's get into it. Like this, I have seen almost all of them except for the ones that came out before the Wrestler. I haven't seen those ones. Like this one, I haven't seen before. And the next one I haven't seen before, and the one after that I haven't seen before. Wait till we get to the Wrestler and I'll be in familiar territory. Let's get into this movie. We go through opening credits and we hear the score that sounds like someone is finding as it did feel pretty thrilling while the movie is shot in black and white, which is a smart choice for this first feature film by director Darren Aronofsky. And we meet Maximilian Cohen, or Max for short, as I'm going to call him for the rest of the show, and played by Sean Gillette, as we get his point of view as he's a computer guy of some kind and a mathematician. And he gets a call from Marcy Dawson, played by Pamela Hart, and he brings up and leaves the building while his neighbor Devi, played by Samira Shoaib, forgive me if I said that wrong, fixing his hair, and he meets Lenny Meyer, played by Ben Shankman, at a bar. And I like that we get a point of view character that is Max throughout the movie, as he gets back home and he hears loud noises in his ears, and that was effective, as this movie works effectively. Marcy once again calls up Max as he's bleeding, and he hangs up once again, and the cinematography is tremendous throughout the entire movie. As Max meets with his doctor and goes to the subway and does some math, as I'm not a mathematician, as like he is, as math is a hard subject in general, as some men, except for those of the people that are mathematicians, as some man sings in the subway, and the scene was random for damn sure. Meanwhile, he meets with Lenny, and he does some math, and he thinks of something in mathematics, as he solves the math problem because he works for the stock company and messes up his work as well as his electricity. And it works for a student project from director Darren Aronofsky. Max works on his electricity and gets the lights as he smashes a chip of some kind and goes outside to meet with Rabbi as they play a game of mathematics, as he's a fucking genius at the subject. And Aronofsky does a good job at editing this thing by making it a tight 84 minutes. And he gets on the train as he's followed by another man, and he gets off the subway and meets with Marcy, and he blows her off because someone is following him, and goes through the garbage looking for a thing he threw away, and meets with a random man who drives him to talk with him about mathematics, where they'll get a pi. And fun fact, it's an old Greek word, mathematical, that is a ratio of a circle's circumference, and it's a diameter, and it's approximately equal to 3.14159. And this is an interesting movie about math, but at the same time, it's very complicated for an 84-minute movie. Marcy follows Max as he's not interested in her money, but he talks with her anyways and once again blows her off as he thinks of the problem that will get to the pie. And as he goes to the train station and sees blood in the station, and he walks towards where it came from and sees his brain, and it's in his imagination as he pokes at it. And eventually he gets inside it as he wakes up in the train and gets to the beach, which is a gorgeously shot scene, particularly in black and white, and he spots someone looking for a rare thing at the beach, and he puts the shell down as he picks up the shell, and the shots are absolutely very good to look at. Max looks through the door hole and sees a little girl named Jenna as as he knocks on Devi's door to get something for him, as he looks through one of those small telescopes with different holes looking thing. As he looks closely at this thing, and he calls Lenny about this conversation he had with him the other night, and he gets a ratio, and I was a little confused as to what the fuck is happening in these mathematical problems, because it was never my favorite subject when I was in school. And he monologues about how when he was 6 years old, he was told he shouldn't look at the sun as it could hurt his eyes, which is true in life. And he calls Marcy and meets up with Lenny, and sometimes the movie is confusing to me, and maybe I should watch this movie more to get the point of it. As Jenna knocks on his door, as does someone else, dropping off a briefcase that holds a chip of some kind. And at this point, this movie is confusing, as I've only seen this movie twice for the show. Like, I'd never seen it until recently at best. Max tries to solve the problem on the computer as he keeps giving him the same answer, and he hears noises from left to right. And he tries to cure himself as he's out of the medicine, and he sees a cut in his head, which was fucking disturbing. And he tries to stitch himself with a machine with staples, and sees his computer screen is trying to show him something that makes it pi. And Max is knocked out and sees Devi helping him out, and the landlord tries to kick him out of the building, and he forced everyone to leave his apartment, which was kind of an aggressive exchange to his neighbors and landlords. And Max shaves his head bald and does a math problem in his head, on his head, I'll say it best, literally, while his phone keeps ringing, which did annoy me about the scene. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, phone, stop ringing for Christ's sakes. But it goes silent while an ant is on the light, and the scene was rather weird to me. Max meets with his doctor and argue about it's a dead end with the mathematics in general, and kicks him out of his house, and he gets his picture taken by a random asshole who didn't give him permission and looks for him all over Times Square, which is in New York City, and gets him and takes the film out of the camera and is encountered by Marcy and her bodyguards, and gets chased by them until he hides from them, and Marcy finds Max and have him surrounded and talk with him about how he had part of the code, but not all of it, until Lenny comes in and helps him out, and they ask him for the whole code, and he off-screen gets out of there and sees the same brain as the train station with bugs crawling on it, and is with the same men with Rabbi Cohen as to ask for his key to the code. And the acting in this was good by these actors. Max tells them he found the code, which is killing them off, and he says he's got it and understands it, and he goes to a friend's house to look at the math problem. And Max tries to take some pills, but he can't do it, and this is when the movie gets weird at this point. He breaks his apartment down and destroys everything and looks at the piece of paper filled with numbers and burns it and drills it in his head, killing himself while he wakes up with Jenna asking him 748 divided by 238, which equals to 3.1442851, and an approximation a pi. And this climax was weird and very complicated, but how weird was it? I mean, it's a good movie, but let's talk about this in a rating. I'll give this movie a 7.3 out of 10. The score sounds like someone is fighting, as it did feel pretty thrilling while the whole movie was shot in black and white, which was a smart choice from a first-time director Darren Aronofsky was back in 1998, like Christopher Nolan was in Following, which did come out the same year as this, and I have reviewed before. And I like that we get a point of view character that is Max throughout the movie. And this movie works effectively. The cinematography is tremendous throughout the entire movie, as it works for a student project film from director Darren Aronofsky, as he does a good job at editing this thing and making it a tight 84 minutes, as it's an interesting movie, but at the same time, very complicated because it's confusing, and math is not my favorite subject in school because, in general, I was struggling with it. This is a pretty good work of a movie from director Darren Aronofsky, as the shots are very good to look at, And this is a recommendation for this movie, as it was confusing to me. And maybe I should watch this again if I have time, which I don't have it. But maybe one day I will, as I've seen this twice for the show. I haven't seen it before until now, but it's a pretty damn good first feature-length film, as it is a good movie. But I was a little confused at the end of the day. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Requiem for a Dream. And until then, 748 divided by 238 is pi.